Hey everybody, it is December 29th, 2025. It's Joe from the Strange Voyage Files, and oh man, what can you say? What can you say about this album? SOD. A fun album that was meant as a complete and utter joke. And literally, Dan Lilkicker says, we did this to piss people off. This is an absolute joke to see who we could really piss off. And they did. And there were two sets of people. There's people who got the joke with this and people who got offended. Even back then, this was 87, right? Yep, 87. And got offended. Now, yeah, I mean, you have March of the SOD, United Forces, there's some songs. In today's climate, I'm not going to say because somebody's going to get offended. Hey Gordy, Fist Banging Mania. Did my buddy and I love that song because we were so, at the time, we're like 12 at this point in time and we're total headbangers. And we were so into that when people were at concerts and they're just like, yeah, man, yeah, instead of headbanging. No, you're not real. You're not real at all. I just remember this album, and no, I'm not going to go through it and whatnot. If I had to rate this album, you know what? This would be a 5. This album would be a 5. It's just for the pure it being hilarious. And this is just it was recorded in like a week? The songs were written, like, some of them on the spot. And again, these songs, 34 seconds, 5 seconds. It's the longest one on here. Is it March of the SOD? Yeah, I think March. No, Freddy Krueger's the longest song on here. And, if you don't know this album, it's got Charlie Benante and Scott Ian from Anthrax. It's got Billy Milano from MOD and Dan Lilkicker from Nuclear Assault. And they're just drunk doing this. And I guess Megaforce Records said, hey, these are fun songs. Put it out. Why not? Why not? This is a super group. Let's put it out. And it did. There were some people that just were so offended by this. And this was back in 87. I can only imagine people would their heads would probably explode with some of the songs today in today's environment. But it was a total joke. One of the songs is Milk. Ode to Billy. Ode to their lead singer. And then of course the other ones I'm not going to mention because I don't want to deal with that. Even the title, Speak English or Die, that is just to piss people off. There's no hidden racism behind it or anything. It was like, what can we do? What are we going to slap on the cover of this album that's just going to piss a bunch of people off? And then calling themselves the Stormtroopers of Death. Although at that point, most people were instead of associating stormtroopers with the Nazis, they were probably associating with Star Wars. But at any rate, the album is just, it's like, 27 minutes, 24 minutes, something like that, if that. Absolutely hilarious, absolutely fun. And, nobody expected it to sell for anything. I'm sure they thought, maybe like 5,000 copies will sell, just by word of mouth. And it blows up. What does it give a... I'm of course on good old Wikipedia. All right, let's see. Does it say... Nah, it doesn't say... Like, obviously didn't sell like 500,000 copies or anything like that. But it still sells like crazy. And everybody who isn't offended thinks it's hilarious. And then they tour, and I guess they opened for Motorhead, I think. And they couldn't really do much with it because it was a joke. So, they all have, especially Scott and Charlie have, Anthrax. Dan has Nuclear Assault. Billy, I believe, is about to start MOD. So the two guys from Anthrax and Nuclear, and the one guy from Nuclear Assault, they have other things that are their priority. So nothing really. They were kind of planning a follow up for this, but they didn't expect a tour. They didn't expect to play any shows for this. And there are two follow up albums. That happened like years and years and years later from each other. But behind the scenes, this is a disaster. The first one's fun, and I spent time watching interviews with Billy and with Scott just now, and boy, they hate each other now, and it's sad because it's something that was supposed to be just fun that blew up. The T-shirt, everybody had that. If you were a metalhead, everybody had the T-shirt that blew up. That became a business. And Billy, of course, is saying that Scott and Charlie screwed him out of royalties, and I guess he's suing them. And, Scott and Charlie say that Billy's impossible to deal with. Now, if I had to choose a side, I would probably choose Billy because from what I know, and I'm not a big... So, if I'm going to say I like any of these three bands that these guys were associated with, I'd probably pick Nuclear Assault the most. And not a big fan of any of these three bands. Not that I dislike them, I'm just not a big fan of any of them. It's never a big Anthrax fan. I did like Game Over from Nuclear Assault. And, oh God, I'm picturing I'm looking at the let me pull it up. This is kind of why I have this is why I have Wikipedia up all the time, because man, I can't remember anything anymore. Just fun to get old. Handle with Care, that was the other one. Yes. I loved both those in Critical Mass, yes. I loved both those albums. What was the other one? No, I didn't. I know Survive. I never listened. Is it Out of Order? There was another one I thought No, I know it's not this. Any rate, no, those were the two I really knew. But any rate, it's like everything else. This becomes a disaster. Money. Then they go on. Then I think there's another tour. Yeah, Scott was saying that they did a second leg from this album, and it was a disaster. That Billy had an ego. Dan's the only one that nobody seems to say anything negative about. But Billy had an ego and whatnot, and I don't know. I don't know anything about Billy either. But from stories I've heard about Scott Ian, he is supposed to be a jerk. He really is just supposed to be. Even going back, man, I remember reading interviews and seeing, people tell stories on YouTube and whatnot, and even going back to like the mid 80s and whatnot, the stories are he's just always been a jerk. So if I had to side with one of them, I'm going to side with Billy, who I really don't know, but I'm going against Scott because I know of Scott's reputation. They do another studio length album, and then they do an EP that's a live one, and that's kind of it. But this is the one, man. This one is just hilarious. And yes, you're going to get offended if you're easily offended. You're going to get offended. Anti-procrastination song. It's 3 seconds long. That's the joke. That is the joke behind this. So, it's really a shame that something that was just supposed to be fun and a bunch of guys sitting around drinking beers, all buddies, having fun. Let's do a song called the Anti-Procrastination Song. How long is it going to be? Who cares? 3 seconds. Play whatever for 3 seconds. That was the album. That was it, man. And people caught onto it, and and a lot of people got the joke. And they thought it was funny. And the album sold. And the business screwed it up. So I never even heard the other two albums, so I couldn't tell you the first thing about them. I know one is kind of a it's like it's bigger than the devil is the one other one that's called, and it's like the Number of the Beast one album cover. But I definitely check out this one if you haven't. Speak English or Die. It is hilarious. Yes, it's going to be offensive. Nobody's racist. It was completely done on purpose to aggravate people, to piss people off, to push people's buttons. So, no, this is not an evil hate album by any means. All right, so let me know what you think. Fun album, something that was done as a joke, something that was done in fun that turns into a money greed disaster. Let me know what you think about this album. And again, I'd say it's a 5. I mean, just the songs are so much fun. This one would be a 5 for me. Like, subscribe, and I will see you.